Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're taking a really fascinating, kind of deconstructive look at a feeling we absolutely all chase, but rarely understand how it's actually made. I'm talking about motivation. We're going to explore exactly how motivation is engineered, measured, and, well, delivered to us on a daily basis. Because whether it's through the timeless rhythm of ancient poetry, the hard data of clinical psychology, the electric atmosphere of a live seminar, or just a highly polished algorithmic viral short, there is a deep science and a seriously refined art to getting you fired up. So let's dive right into this. Our entire journey today is going to be guided by one really simple thought. Rise and shine, make today yours to claim. Success awaits those who play the game. Now, it's catchy, right? But it's actually so much more than just a nice rhyme. This specific focus is going to be our anchor for this whole explainer. See, the idea of playing the game isn't just about trying hard or, grinding out long hours. It's about understanding the underlying rules of what actually drives human behavior. We're going to unpack the literal anatomy of how that motivational spark gets lit so you can play the game better than ever.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the power of poetic words. So let's move into the very first layer of our motivation anatomy, which is the cultural and historical foundation of using words to trigger a deep emotional drive. Because long before we had giant corporate arenas or YouTube shorts, we had the spoken and written word, just passed down through generations. Specifically, let's look at motivational shari. If you're not familiar, this is a form of short, highly rhythmic poetry that's deeply rooted in the rich traditions of Urdu and Hindi literature. It takes these incredibly complex human emotions, like the heavy burden of failure, the desperate hope for success, or the sting of a massive setback, and it makes them instantly accessible. It acts like an immediate psychological spark. And when these poetic couplets are translated into English, they retain that incredible emotional depth. They deliver timeless wisdom, resilience, and positivity in these really compact, memorable lines that just kind of stick in your head for days. To put that into perspective, while a plain quote might logically touch your mind with, say, moderate emotional depth, shari uses specific rhythm and deep feeling to speak directly to your soul. The emotional depth is just very high. And because of that poetic flow, its memorability is completely off the charts. It's deeply rooted in South Asian tradition, which gives it this profound cultural connection, yet the core themes of human resilience, they're completely universal. That rhythmic structure is exactly why these phrases spread like wildfire across social media and remain so deeply impactful. You don't just passively read a shari, you actually feel it.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, the science of inner resilience. So we know beautifully crafted art can inspire us, but let's pivot to the hard empirical science for a second. It is super easy to just tell someone to stay motivated, right? But how do we actually scientifically measure this inner drive to overcome adversity? Like, how do psychologists quantify that feeling of resilience when an individual is facing continuous stress or a really tough situation?
Well, to answer that, researchers over at Government College University Faisalabad actually built an indigenous psychological scale for resilience in the Urdu language, tailored specifically to the cultural context of Pakistan. And they used the statistical tool called a scree plot. Basically, they started with a massive pool of 60 different psychological questions, surveyed a bunch of participants, and then whittled them down through factor analysis. Factor analysis is just a way of finding hidden patterns in the data to group answers together. And this statistical approach proved to the researchers that resilience isn't just one big, vague personality trait. It's actually structurally divided into two totally distinct, measurable factors.
So, what are those two factors? Well, out of a final 22-item scale, the researchers identified the two true pillars of resilience. First up, we have positive support, which is made up of 13 specific items. This represents your external network, social assistance, emotional backing, community ties. You absolutely need people in your corner. Second, we have adaptive coping, making up the remaining 9 items. Now, this is your internal engine. It's your mental flexibility, your problem management skills, your emotional intelligence. The big takeaway here is that true motivation and the ability to bounce back from adversity, it relies heavily on having both of these pillars working in tandem. You need the external support system to hold you up and the internal cognitive adaptability to keep moving forward. All right, Section 3, leaders of live inspiration. So we've looked at ancient poetry and we've looked at clinical psychology. Now let's explore how expert speakers take these exact psychological principles and engineer them for massive live audiences to drive immediate behavioral change.
We've got a fascinating contrast here between two distinctly different yet incredibly successful styles of delivering motivation in India right now. On one side, you've got Nasir Khan. He delivers to these high-stakes corporate offsites and leadership summits using a proprietary methodology he calls neurocoding. This combines behavioral psychology and identity-level change to give professionals actionable frameworks they can literally use on Monday morning. And he's so confident in this structured approach that, get this, in 30 years and over 1,000 events, he has never had a single refund claimed on his money-back guarantee. No way, right? Then, on the other side, you have Sandeep Maheshwari, who focuses on massive public inspiration. He hosts these huge, values-based youth events and has pulled in hundreds of millions of digital views on YouTube. Both speakers are highly effective, but they show us how inspiration scales differently. It's either structured corporate behavioral psychology for targeted teams, or it's a massive, emotionally resonant digital youth movement.
And that brings us to Section 4, Crafting Cinematic Motivation. This is the final piece of the anatomy, the digital production of inspirational content. I mean, we consume so much motivation through our screens every single day, right? But how is it actually built from a technical perspective? Well, the famous phrase, "the medium is the message," holds incredibly true here. The way a motivational video is shot, edited, and scripted is honestly just as important as the inspiring message itself. You could literally have the most profound words in the world, but if the content isn't designed for viewer retention, human attention algorithms will just bury it. It becomes invisible. Let's deconstruct the highly calculated script formula for YouTube Shorts, shared by creator Technical Yogi. Modern motivation requires you to instantly attack the viewer's curiosity. First, you've got a super tight 10-second intro. You don't waste time saying hello. You ask a relatable, thought-provoking question that hooks the viewer's mind immediately, and you ask them to subscribe right then and there. Second, you jump straight into the main part. Deliver the core value or explanation without any filler. Boo. And third, the swift outro. As soon as that educational value is delivered, you end the thing instantly. If you linger or drag out the goodbye, people swipe away, and your engagement metrics absolutely tank. It's a precise, totally unsentimental psychological formula designed purely for retention.
And it's not just the script, it's the intense visual production too. Filmmaker Arthur Weiner breaks down his cinematic playbook for producing high-quality motivational content, and it really highlights the massive technical effort required to inspire people. First, and this is kind of ironic, he says to get your 7 to 8 hours of sleep, because you have to wake up an hour or two before sunrise to get those epic, golden hour shots that completely define the genre. Second, he actually starts editing to his chosen music track before he even shoots a single frame. He lets the music dictate the visual pacing. Third, he shoots on cameras in 120 frames per second slow motion. That is absolutely essential for capturing that dramatic, emotional gravity. And finally, he uses a 70 to 200 millimeter long lens to give the footage that high-end, isolated television sports look.
But there's a great piece of relatable, really gritty reality in the filmmaking process here. Winner says double or triple the time you've set in your plan. Drone shots take all day. He thought a ski shoot in freezing cold weather would take a few hours, and it took the entire day just to get the aerial drone footage right. It is a massive grind. Creating that effortless, inspiring, motivational content that you watch for 2 minutes requires an exhausting amount of planning, freezing early mornings, and technical precision. There's a huge irony here. The creators themselves have to possess incredible psychological resilience just to make a piece of media about resilience. So we have broken it all down, from the ancient rhythmic power of Sherry that speaks so deeply to the human soul, to the clinical 2 pillars of resilience that we can actually map on a psychological scale. We've seen how master speakers engineer massive live events using behavioral psychology, and we've uncovered the exact algorithmic formulas filmmakers use to capture your attention and edit cinematic inspiration. The tools to build motivation, the science to measure it, and the scripts to deliver it, they are all out there. Which brings us right back to our opening thought. Success awaits those who play the game. You now know exactly how the game is designed. The only question left is, are you ready to play? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it gave you some powerful new insights into the media we consume. Keep learning, stay focused, and I'll catch you in the next one.